welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 27.
We're back. Super imaginative title, but that's what I got for you. And just a reminder, we started doing this last podcast, but letting people know what this is all about. This is a Photo Mishmash. This is our podcast where we share photo news, tips, generally have a discussion, photography related, and answer some reader questions. Yeah. Oh, and excitingly, this will be the inaugural episode that makes its way up to iTunes. So if you want to listen to our melodious voices instead of gaze upon our beautiful faces, you can do that. Right down below this video will be a link to subscribe in iTunes and all of those other good podcast catcher type things.
Bean totally just photobombed us.
Was he in the shot?
Yeah.
Great. Then you won't even have to look at Bean's fuzzy butt if you just listen. So that'll be an option, and of course, as we move forward in time, that will continue to be an option as a way to consume this.
That's right.
Great.
So we have a lot of content to make up for the month or so that we've been away.
We're just going to cover every single photo news story that's happened while we've been away.
Everything. No, just kidding.
No.
But well, let's start with the week in review.
The week in review.
Yeah. So you had the GH4 back this week.
GH4 came back. I rented it again from Lumoid because I wanted to do some careful side-by-side testing versus the 70D. Because the 70D really up to now has been kind of my go-to camera for a good price point, all-around photo video machine. I mean, that dual pixel focusing technology is pretty snazzy, and it does a nice job. But here is this smaller camera that shoots gorgeous 4K video, and it is more expensive. You know, it's about $1,700, 70D body only, $1,700. 70D body only is about $1,000, $1,100. It's lovely. I want to buy it. It's, you know, it's just really nice. You think about going to that micro four thirds format, you've got a smaller camera, you have smaller lenses. I mean, you're cutting your camera bag size in half when you're going out to make videos. Now, the reason why I probably am not going to buy it, its budget is a little on the tight side right now, and I still have all of this Canon gear, and I'm going to have all this Canon gear for shooting weddings.
Right.
The GH4 does not in any way replace the photo power that you get out of a full-frame 5D Mark III camera. No. But that video quality is gorgeous. Nice. And we sat down with our friend Bryant from Slate Roof Films. He is a videographer, professional. And I wanted him to take a look at it too. And just really, this was just over, you know, lunch at a local cafe. But we did come back and we poked some of the files, you know, and he dug in, and the gist of it is there's a lot of hype around this camera, and it's deservedly so because of the beautiful files it's producing. And those files, I don't want to call them raw or even raw-like. That's a stretch. But the video, you have a lot of latitude for post-processing there. And that's not something that's common in shooting video. Usually when you shoot video, it's very JPEG-like, and just a little bit of exposure changes or color changes, and it can look pretty trashy pretty quickly. Right. You have very little room for error. But GH4 gives you a good bit of room for stabilization also. I don't want to repeat my whole 70D versus GH4 review, and I know a lot of people are saying 4K, who cares? I don't know anybody who has a 4K television or monitor. The point is, you record more data, you've got more room to do stuff with it. You can crop, you can zoom. We zoomed one of those clips to 230%. It still looked good. So you're giving yourself a digital zoom that looks gorgeous. And you think about shooting at 4K and then going to 1080, how much room you have to zoom. It's nice. It's very nice.
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody. I still think the 70D, if you're a parent, you know, just want to capture kids on stage or soccer, that dual pixel technology is really nice. But if you're serious about video, this is a camera you should seriously consider.
So when can we see your final thoughts on it?
That will all be out next week.
Great.
I'll have a couple videos coming on that.
Awesome.
Yep.
So another video that came out this week was your comparison of underwater casings.
Yeah, different options. You know, I had hoped to get this out earlier in the summer, because it feels a little late now, especially since we were wearing long sleeves in here in Vermont today.
It's cold.
It's chilly. But, you know, it's up there now, and folks can take a look at it. Just comparing it like a cell phone case from the diptychs guys. The SLR pack that I've been using now for over a year, and pretty happy with most of the time. You know, I don't expect a lot of it, but when I want to get DSLR quality shots in or just under the surface of the water, it works quite nicely. And then of course a GoPro, and I'm pointing at, we got a quick camera 2 set up using the GoPro right now. And just kind of shared some thoughts of those and spent a few moments in this local swimming hole, cooling off hole. And I got to see a cute little trout that was underwater. So if you haven't watched that yet, watch for it, and you see a couple clips of the little fish swimming in there. It's a very pretty fish. Blends right in with the rocks.
Great. And lastly, we published a video about how to create diptychs in Lightroom.
Yeah.
Well, you published it, but I created it.
You created it, and this is exciting. I sent out my newsletter today. Are you all subscribed to the newsletter? Because that went out, well, yesterday for you watching today. And I said there's been a couple of milestones in the past couple of weeks. One is I hit 50,000 subscribers. See, you started this about you, but I'm going to make it about me. Yeah.
Isn't everything about you?
Yes. We hit 50,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel this week, and that's awesome. That's really cool. And it means a lot. If you haven't subscribed, please take a moment, hit that button real quick. It helps with a lot of things. It's a nice benchmark that a lot of different companies use when they're thinking about giving me gear or how seriously to take me. And that means that there's a pile of you out there that appreciate what we're saying. So that's nice. And another milestone was that you made your very first video.
That's right.
The presets.
All on my own.
Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I walk through a way in which you can create your very own diptych. And for those of you who don't know what a diptych is, it's basically two images displayed side by side. And the images are typically related to one another. They don't have to be the same subject matter, but they usually go together. They're together on purpose. So there's also triptychs, which are 3 images instead of 2. And so I just walk through the process of creating one in Lightroom. We have made and packaged some nice print templates that you can download if you are a newsletter subscriber. Can people still get it if they haven't subscribed yet?
Yes, they can. I will check the subscriptions, and any new ones that happened before this assignment coming up, I will send out.
Great. So
yes.
If you want the print templates, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. And watch that video. And so this video was made in relation to the assignment we gave you guys a few weeks ago. It is like the double take assignment. If you're not familiar with that, we gave an assignment a few weeks back, a couple months ago actually now, where we asked you to look at a scene in 2 different ways. So take a really wide shot of the entire scene and then get in really close. So it's kind of like that in that we ask you to take 2 different pictures, but what we want you to do this time is to really think about the subject matter and explore it in maybe a different angle or explore it in a very different way and then put the pictures side by side, just to kind of get you thinking about the different ways that you can capture just one thing. So, but also to get you thinking about aesthetics and how they, 2 pictures might be able to go together right next to each other and just complement each other. So yeah, so that video went out this week. Be sure to watch it, and once again, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter.
See if you can identify the noise in the background during the last 3 minutes of the video. Leave a comment. In my newsletter that went out today, I'll be brief because I think many people subscribe to that. But I said, our assignments, photo assignments worth your time was the subject line. Trying to be a little catchy there. And I think they are. They challenge you. And one of the things that I've really liked about our assignments, many of them so far, is that we've thought hard. Well, I say this, when usually you come up with them on the spot while we're critiquing images, you're like, I got a new assignment.
I already forgot about the one that I came up with last time we critiqued something.
I thought it was this. Oh, it's not. You have another one?
Well, there was a different one that I thought of when we were critiquing, and I forgot about it already. But go on. Carry on.
But so I think we've been very thoughtful about the assignments, and they may be a little bit more challenging, especially this one, because, well, you do have to have Lightroom or Photoshop or some way to put two images together in one, because that's what we're asking for. One image that contains two images framed in such a way. And we've actually already had one submission. Angela has sent hers in. I liked it. We'll talk more about it when we critique them this Sunday. So they should be in by Sunday midnight for us to get critiquing. And I think participation is going to be a little low because this is a little bit more challenging and we're asking a lot of you. So if you'd like to hear us say something about your image, you've got a pretty good chance if you submit that we'll probably be able to do all of the ones that are submitted.
Yeah.
I say that, but maybe there'll be a whole bunch. I'll be surprised, and that'll be a nice surprise. And we've avoided assignments like green or spring or things like that. I think we'll do some of those too, though.
Yeah.
But so far I think the ones have been a little challenging of double taking and motion. Motion is kind of easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have more.
All right.
And for folks who would say, well, how do I learn about these assignments? I need to do a better job of making sure there's always a blog post. Most of them happen and are announced and reminded during our critiques, which come out once a week, usually on Mondays. So you got to watch those. And we usually try to keep those at about 30 minutes in length, so they're not quite as long. Mm-hmm. Okay?
So let's move on to news. I think you already touched on it about iTunes and putting the podcast up on iTunes, right?
So it's on iTunes, link down below.
Great. Well, there was an article on NPR, maybe last week, about a monkey that took a self-portrait. And the question that was raised from the article was, if a monkey takes a photo, does the monkey own the copyright of that photo? So, what do you think?
Or does the photographer whose gear the monkey stole or borrowed own the copyright?
I think this is kind of a loaded question.
Do you think so? Let's give people a quick little background, and also since there may be listeners only now, we have to carefully describe everything visual. So, it's an amazing picture. The story is, a British photographer, David Slater, hiked out into like the Borneo jungle. I'm making that up. He hiked out into some jungle where there are macaw monkeys. And he was in this group of them for a couple of days, and I guess they got pretty accustomed to him. And at some point, one of them got a hold of his camera and
accidentally took a picture.
Oh, he says they took a ton of pictures.
Oh, really?
Tons. They're all blurry, of course, as you would expect a monkey taking a picture would be. But somehow, one picture is amazing portrait of this monkey, and I'm showing it right now, but and she is just smiling, well, it looks like she's smiling, right at the camera, because we anthropomorphize everything that animals do. And Wikimedia picked the picture up and said, common domain. Anybody can use this picture. We have it on our site because a monkey took it. And the photographer's like, wait a second. I spent a pile of money getting out there. That is my gear. Spent time with the monkeys. That's my photograph.
That's interesting.
And somebody in the comments brought up the question of, well, how about all of the photographers that use the camera traps? Those triggers they put out in the woods. National Geographic uses it often. Researchers, biology researchers do it where infrared or some pressure sensor as the animal walks by or over, it's triggered and takes a picture. Somebody said, well, or that, animals, including monkeys, can't own copyright. So are all those pictures in the public domain too, or do they belong to the people that set up the system?
Right.
Is setting up the system different than?
Right, that's slightly different because if you do set up an image, like say that I want to take a self-portrait of myself and I know exactly what I want. So I set up the camera and all I need is for somebody to press the shutter. So then whose picture is it?
That's a good question.
It's the person who set up the shot because you have creative authority over that picture.
Yes.
You can't just, like, pressing a shutter isn't just the only thing that it takes to take a photograph. you have to have some kind of vision. So...
Well, you don't have to, but you should.
Right. Well, everybody has a vision.
I think I've seen quite a few pictures where there wasn't a vision.
Whether there's a good vision or no vision, or no, I mean good vision or bad vision according to your aesthetic preference is a different story. But so, yeah, this is tricky because I will give the photographer credit for getting himself there, getting really, or helping the monkeys feel really comfortable with him, and then having, you know, this picture happen. I'm sure that he was really hoping for something like that to happen by just giving them his camera. I mean, he probably didn't expect much, but there was some intention behind it. So from that point of view, from that perspective, I do think that photographer deserves a little bit more credit. I don't think the monkey was necessarily planning for this picture. So I don't know. It's hard to say because you can't really talk to the monkey and say, hey, were you trying to take this picture? But I don't think
the real title of this podcast is Monkey Selfie.
Okay.
And the question I want from you all is, should this photographer be granted sole copyright as he's asking, or should it remain in the public domain, or should monkeys be allowed to copyright things?
Yeah, but then the whole point of copywriting is so that the monkey can say, hey, you can't use my picture, but were you joking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, kind of.
Well, you didn't sound like you were joking, that's why.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, where the orangutan has a human brain.
All right, so...
You can tell we've been vacationing with kids. Oh, also, we didn't say, because we did it in the first failed take of part 1 of this podcast, but the reason we've been actually gone so long is because you got a bone graft and are really tall now.
I am, yep, that's right.
You're definitely not standing on anything.
Nope.
And
it definitely does not hurt my feet to stand on it.
And the fact that we're standing in general. We're trying this out. It's another question. Let us know. What do you think? Do we shift around too much? Does it look awkward? We'll see. But this is, as you know, we've been using this and table with a little burlap covering. I feel so crafty because I did iron it, so it wasn't wrinkly.
Crafty, I guess I'm following that train of thought. At Michael's. He wants to tell this story. I know he wants to tell this story.
It's fine. It was actually a really exciting moment. I was recognized from the YouTube channel over in Keene, New Hampshire, which is about 30 minutes away. It's the closest Michael's craft store where I needed burlap. And I'm walking around in there looking for burlap, and this guy looks at me and says, excuse me, are you Toby from Camera Channel YouTube? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm Charlie. I love your show. Did
he say I love your channel?
Well, why don't you just let that go?
Well, he might be watching and he'll call you on it, so I figured.
He said that,
nip it in the bud.
all right, I know this is what he definitely said, which is also funny because I think a lot of times when you go up to celebrities, you feel very tongue-tied. I felt way more tongue-tied than I think he was.
Are you saying you're a celebrity?
No.
I'm just giving him a hard time.
He said, something to the effect of, I like your stuff, and I just, you have fans here. I was like, oh, thanks so much. That's nice. And I also had been actually staring at these plastic pumpkins that they had, because they already had Halloween stuff out. Is that so wrong? Every
My
year.
cousin posted a picture on Facebook the other day of Christmas stuff out. It's really
Here in America?
ridiculous. Well, she lives in Canada, but she comes to the U.S. often, so I don't know where she went.
It's always snowy in Canada, so...
yeah,
I know that.
Snow equals Christmas all the time.
It does. Oh yeah, I was staring at these plastic pumpkins wondering if I could get my new logo like drilled into it. Because that's what they had there. You could sign up to have your name carved into these plastic pumpkins.
Great.
I don't know, I know.
So we've sidetracked quite a bit.
We have, I know. That's why it's a photo mishmash.
So tell us what you think about this monkey copyright ordeal. Yep. We want to know your thoughts. I don't know, personally. I don't think that it should be, because this guy made that picture happen. He helped make that picture happen. So I think he deserves a lot more credit than he's being given. So kind of exciting, Photokina is happening in September.
Almost exactly a month away. In just about 1 month, we should know a lot more about a lot more cameras.
That's right. And it's rumored that the 7D Mark II might be announced.
This seems like a very, for a long, you know, I was actually looking, there was a brief period of time where I thought I would create a 7D Mark II Facebook page. Back when I thought that was the way to riches and success. And I was actually looking at that old page the other day, and back in early 2013, it was like, oh, it's rumored to be announced in March. I mean, this has been forever. But here's we got, excuse me, we have the 7D being listed as discontinued now officially in places. Okay. They usually do not do that until there is a replacement on the near horizon. And also that it really is time they need. So it really seems very likely that we're going to see 7D Mark II should be announced September 14th, 15th, somewhere around there. Maybe a little earlier if we're lucky, but at least by those dates. They usually make the announcements right before Photokina gets going, so then everything's announced and people can come in the doors and say, oh, this is, you know, they can have everything out and they don't have to have black cloth over one of the tables. No Wi-Fi is what we're hearing, because it's going to be a very rugged, metallic, solid body like the 7D is, and so apparently they can't make Wi-Fi work with that. And then call up Apple and say, hey, didn't you guys have this issue with, you know, cell service and metal borders? Can we figure out how you fix that? Which is, I think, is disappointing. I'm going to be disappointed if there's no Wi-Fi in there. It's not the end of the world, but it's nice. No touchscreen is another rumor. Right. Because they want to go with a very rugged screen. Now, this bothers me saying that for some reason, because you know, it doesn't happen too often anymore. People would often write in the early days of the T5i and the 70D and be like, that touch screen's going to break. I haven't heard from a single person that the touch screen has stopped functioning. I don't know. Does your touch screen on your smartphone stop functioning unless you've dropped it and cracked it?
That's a good point.
I don't know. This doesn't seem like a technology that's really going to fail any faster than dials and buttons. And to be clear, I was not excited about a touchscreen when it was first announced. I was like, I don't need a touchscreen. My finger's going to be dirty. And that's true. But for focusing and for changing some settings, it's really nice.
Yeah.
I like it, and I miss it when I'm using my cameras without it now. So, but 1DX style body, really fast frame rate, pretty high megapixels, probably going to start about $2,000. So we'll know more. Also rumors on the Nikon side of maybe the D700, a full frame sports camera. So the 7D Mark II is still going to be a crop sensor, but we'll have a full frame from Nikon, probably announced about the same time, that should be pretty impressive as well. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
We'll see. And there'll be a slew of other things as well. Maybe updated GoPros. Still, you know, I'm kind of surprised we haven't heard anything about the T6i. I would expect that we'd hear something about that fairly soon. And that might come at Photokina too. But rumor mills usually, they don't get too excited about your entry-level DSLR. So usually they just get announced and then they're like, oh, hey, new one.
What would they update?
Well, Wi-Fi. It's got to have Wi-Fi. Okay. It has got to have a new sensor. The sensor's good, but we've got a lot. Compared to all the other cameras that have come out in the last 2 years, its sensor was already a little dated, and it could be better. I know the other thing, 7D Mark II, is the next generation of the dual pixel autofocus, which is sweet. You know, I talked about the GH4 a little bit, really nice camera. But it still has that kind of womp-womp effect in focusing. It's not something professionals are going to use, so it doesn't really matter, and that's why for parents, that 70D is really nice, because it's just smooth. It's just smooth. So it would be neat to see the next generation of the dual pixel. See how much faster, how much smoother, like butter.
So tell me about this Polaroid Cube.
Oh yeah, you should have looked that up a little bit. So pointing at the GoPro again. You know, it's interesting. In the underwater video I put out, I said, you know, here's the GoPro. a little bit of a review about it, but somebody was like, will you review the Action MKV2-4? And they linked to it, or I searched it up, and it basically looks like a GoPro, a little bit cheaper. You know, there are a lot of action cam options out there. What's your dad like?
He likes a Sony action cam, I think.
Yeah, Sony action cam.
That's what he has.
Yeah, that's snazzy. I mean, so the GoPro isn't necessarily the best, but it's got that huge ecosystem and it's quite good. Those two things, you know, it has a huge market share, a huge market lead. But, so we got this little Polaroid Cube. Photo Jojo is going to be the only seller of it for a little while.
Really?
Which is, you know, they're kind of a quirky camera store. They sell quirky things. What else do they sell?
Just like little gadgets for your phone for taking pictures. They sell those Lomo cameras, like film stuff. Yeah. They just like, really quirky photo stuff.
Yeah. So they're going to sell it for a while, but it's similar in size to the GoPro, except a little smaller and a perfect cube. It does 1080p and 720. I think it's waterproof. It's rugged in this little kind of rubbery body. The price, I actually haven't looked at Photo Jojo. Oh, I could because I have a computer right here. I don't know if it's actually being sold yet, but the price people are saying was $100. Which the GoPro, the good one, is $300. Yeah, there it is, the Polaroid Cube, the colorful action camera that can go anywhere.
$100.
$100. So you know what? If you're thinking,
it's adorable.
Do you really feel that way?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. If you're thinking about maybe wanting an action camera, and the general consensus in the comments of my underwater was GoPro's the way to go. Get a couple extra spare batteries. It's pretty nice.
Here's my question though. What's the point of, or is there anything that's printed from this? Because I feel like that's Polaroid's thing. Like they have digital stuff, but you always get some sort of printed product.
Nope. This just happens to be made by Polaroid, but it is very much a GoPro competitor.
Capitalized on that market,
printing, yeah.
And it's super cheap. It's
$100. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna write them. Say, send me along one of those. Let me check it out.
All right.
We'll see. What else?
Well, that's all we have for news.
Yeah.
We're close to 30.
Okay. Well, we have one piece of news that we can talk about in the news section that leads nicely into our discussion section. Okay. And that is, you done busted your lens. That's a bit of news. Christina's very nice 85 f1.2 Mark II. Is it your favorite lens?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your favorite lens. How did it break?
It fell. I dropped it.
Yeah. And again, for listeners only, we have to carefully describe the picture we're now showing you. Is the front element is completely fine. Yep. The back element has a pretty good crack in it.
Which that rear element always makes me nervous. Just ever since I've had it, because it's just on the edge.
Yeah, it is actually less protected. The back is, well, which makes sense because usually it spends time against the camera. But I'm sorry, that glass just sticks right out.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
How did it break?
Magically, though, it's always been fine. What do you mean, how did it break?
How did it get broken?
I told you I dropped it.
Oh, did you tell them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was thinking about what to say next. And how did you drop it?
I was switching lenses from camera to camera because I had a speed light on one and I didn't on the other one, and I had to be quick. I didn't have time to just go grab another speed light. So, so it was very sad. It was sad. I have never broken a lens before. Considering how clumsy I am with everything, I am really surprised that hasn't happened already. Yeah. We did drop it one time when we were in Maine. That was totally your fault. The glass didn't break, though. One of the barrels got super banged up, but nothing broke.
And you had it repaired.
Yeah, it was still pretty expensive to get it repaired.
Yeah.
But
did insurance cover that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they covered the repair minus 200, which is the
Okay.
deductible. So, but it was still, you know, I would have had to pay over 400. So
Yeah.
it's still worth it. So that leads us into our discussion piece. Insurance options.
Yeah, because some people, you know, you posted that and I shared it out on the Facebook page. And some people said, yikes, what is your options for insurance? We'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And, you know, this is one of those places where I feel like we always have to put up a disclaimer. Here's what we do, and it's what works for us, but you should fully research your options and find out what works best for you. So we'll just talk a little bit. But before we even get to that, let's talk about recommended ways to change your lenses. Do you know what I mean? No? Too simple? Like, I've got, I didn't even talk about this too. The lens
Enlighten
one
me.
here. Well, like, what's the best way to change a lens on the go?
What do you mean?
Well, step one, don't drop it.
You really need to remind people of that.
No, I was being sarcastic. But I mean, here's what I usually do, and now of course I don't have anything within reach to actually do it. I should have thought about this.
Here's the thing that I think. I think that accidents happen, and even when you're being super careful. And when I said that I'm really clumsy, I am pretty clumsy, but I'm also really, really careful because I recognize that this is stuff that I need weekly to operate. And I'm careful, but accidents happen, you know, like maybe next time it won't be my fault. Maybe next time it'll just happen in my bag or somebody else will do it. Or the point is that you should be...
I'm not trying to imply that you were careless or that, you know, I know accidents happen, but for folks, when they're changing lenses, what do we recommend?
I don't recommend anything. I don't think that there are multiple ways to change a lens. There's like click and put a lens back on there. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Or did you have something specific in mind?
Well, I mean, you got a couple different options. If you've got a bag, you know, yes, you take the one lens off, put it down in the bag, get the other lens out, and put it on.
Okay.
That's another option. You got under the armpit, which I think is very good. It's very secure there. I do that fairly often. You know, people get stressed out having their lens off and, you know, try to rush that. I think it's not worth rushing. Take your time, make a good exchange, and you'll be good. Yeah. If you've got a surface, a flat, steady surface, stable surface to put something down on, put it on the switch as well. Yeah. That's good. The camera does not have to be off. This is get a little sidetracked here, but the recommendation is it should, because then maybe the sensor is a little bit less charged and will gather as much dust. But holy moly, we change lenses during a wedding 40,
we do not have
50,
time.
60 times.
We don't have time to do it.
We don't turn our cameras off, and it's 100% fine every time.
But going back to insurance stuff,
yes.
Again, accidents do happen. They will happen, especially if you're shooting for hours and upon hours upon hours upon hours. You know, it's just the laws of life.
And so that's why there's insurance.
Yeah, so you should always be prepared in case something like that happens. So instead of having to buy a new lens, you know, I can talk to my insurance company and hopefully they're going to help me out. I might still have to pay a deductible, but it's way better than having to pay.
Yes.
Well, yes, I will.
The full price of the lens. So what we need to separate right now here is from professional photographers from amateurs.
Right. Well, if you're
amateur photographers.
Right. If you're just a hobbyist, then you can just claim it on your renter's insurance, right, or homeowner's insurance.
Yeah. What's going to be tricky though for a lot of folks is a lot of lenses are probably right around your deductible price. It's not until you get into the L glass that it's going to be worthwhile. But yes, it should be covered under your homeowner's insurance. If you're using this gear to make money though, and this is where, you know, I don't want to give anybody bad advice. If the insurance company knows that or finds that out and you're just claiming it under your homeowner's insurance, they may balk and say, in trouble. You should have bought our business insurance. We're not going to cover this. And so a lot of companies will offer some type of business insurance as well.
If you're really,
a lot of standard insurance companies.
If you're really interested in checking out a pretty solid insurance plan, check out or log on to PPA.
What does PPA stand for?
Professional Photographers of America. They not only have resources in terms of like lawyers, business advice, and stuff that can greatly help you start up your business, but and this sounds like an ad, but it is really helpful. They also have up to $15,000 free included with your membership of insurance coverage. So I think it covers depreciated value, but still, I think it's great, and you don't have to pay anything beyond your monthly or yearly membership fees, and
which comes with other benefits as well.
Right, and you get $15,000 worth of insurance. And if you have more than $15,000 worth of gear, which is definitely our case, you can just use the same company and add on the remainder of the gear that you own, and it's totally reasonable. It's like you hate paying for insurance because it's like all this money. What if you don't break anything? But then when you do, then you'll be glad you have it.
Right.
So
how did you decide to go with PPA?
It was just the easiest thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Truthfully,
Yep.
It just I mean, I didn't want to have to go talk to somebody. I just wanted to sign up, click, 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 and then be done. And I think that's the case a lot of times for many things, for many people. The easiest route wins.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You want to be careful. You're not spending
of course
$1 billion more than you need to.
Right, but I trust
right.
PPA. I think,
right.
If it was like some random insurance company that I'd never heard of before, that wasn't like vetted by all these other people and professional photographers.
Other professionals that use the PPA.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. And then there's actually, I think right before we went on vacation, I posted, this is slightly related, discussion about buying extended warranties, because my friend Laura, who's just little digital rebel, she actually has a T3, pooped out on her. It's a couple years out of warranty, or a year, I think actually just a year out of warranty. And, Canon said $399 to fix, or $399. It's a pile of cash. And I asked people, do you think you should buy extended warranties? And the general consensus there is no. And I agree. I do not buy extended warranties usually, but having assurance. But you may want to consider it on some more expensive lenses. That may be another way to go if you want to just insure one thing or another thing. That's because those do cover drops and breakage through use.
It's true.
So that's an option as well.
Right, if you don't have insurance.
Yep.
But yeah, so hopefully that gives you guys an idea of what to do if you had any questions about insurance.
Yeah, and you're welcome to leave them down below, but I don't know if we're the best experts, but we just wanted to share because people had asked after seeing the busted lens.
Great, so let's move on to reader questions then.
Great. So the first one, did you see? You got it. You can see it here. Fredo Photo. This was posted on an older podcast. We had a couple of posts about where you said, I don't want to see any more sunset pictures. And we both sounded a little burnt out.
I was very grumpy about it.
Yeah. I think I saw you taking a sunset picture on vacation.
Did I?
Yeah. Pretty sure you took that one from the balcony of the sun setting.
Well, I was asked to. Everybody was like, run, go get the camera. So I reluctantly didn't.
Okay. But anyway, Fredo Photo wants to know, do you have fun with photography when you're not getting paid? He struggles with photography as a job as well, and that's why he's an engineer. He's good enough to make a living at photography, but he doesn't want it to be his job. So he decided to set a business and only take projects that interest me and use my engineer job to pay bills. This way I don't get stale and bored with photography.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's really great, what you do.
As long as you love engineering too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I do love my job, and I like photography even if I'm not getting paid to do it. I mean, I think the jobs, some of the work, my favorite work, the work that I enjoy most, is work that I've set up and that I am not getting paid for. Like, we've done a couple of styled shoots where we just, where I get together with some other wedding vendors in the area and we put together this really awesome shoot, and I'm actually paying money to make it happen instead of getting paid. And I really, really enjoy that, and I enjoy the collaboration. I love all the creative aspects and the creative control that I have. So I like that, and I do enjoy very much shooting, you know, when I'm not getting paid. And I enjoy shooting when I am getting paid as well. But yeah, I mean, I do think that taking on photography as my job and my career has taken some of the fun out of it. I just overthink things way too much for the purpose of like being a perfectionist sometimes, and then sometimes just comparing myself against others that are doing either better or worse than me at any given time. So yeah, so it has definitely taken some of the fun out of it.
And there's the discussion related, I say that a lot, to...
It's all related, guys.
It is all related in
all
this
related.
mishmash. When we had our lovely interview with David and Ali McKay from David McKay Academy, which those folks are currently in Iceland posting gorgeous pictures. I hope that we're on that trip sometime in the future, but we're getting really excited for our Italy trip. More about that soon. But talked about many photographers, they love photography, they go into business, and suddenly 75% of their day is spent like running the business.
Right.
Or 90% of the day. And so it you know,
right. So when
not trying to dissuade anybody, but
right. So when I actually get to take pictures, I mean, it's, you know, it's a job, but it feels like very little of what I actually have to do as a business owner, because I end up doing so many other things. But yeah, I mean, you kind of have to take all of that on. If you think that you want to be a professional photographer, you're gonna expect. And this all didn't make sense to me the first like year and a half, 2 years of being in business. But it's, you know, in the last couple of years, it's really just become very, very apparent how much I have to spread myself thin to do all of these other things that I didn't originally sign on to do. So it's fun. A lot of the times it's rewarding. There's lots of really great things about it, but there are times when I feel really burned out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
So.
But that's when you work on projects like building your own bed frame and things like
That's right. That's what I've been doing for the last 2 days.
And that's why you got an icy hot patch back there.
That's right. I have an icy hot patch because I
That's what you all wanted to know.
hurt my neck. And I smell like cedar or pine. Some kind of wood.
Moving on to the next question. David Lee Gilbert says he's got a 70D. When he develops pictures at the local box store, the pictures are cropped. 4x6, 5x7, 8x10. Why do they crop my photos? Why can't the entire picture be printed, Christina?
Well, if you are cropping, or if you want an 8x10 photo printed of a photo that you took with a DSLR that has an aspect ratio of a 4x6, then you're gonna lose stuff on either edge of the photo. So
Why?
if you're, because the aspect ratio is smaller. So the aspect ratio of 8x10 is not the same as 4x6. 4x6 is wider.
That's math.
8x10 is narrower. So it's larger, but it's narrow. And why?
Why?
I don't know why.
Why?
That's just how it's been. I think it refers back to the old like medium and large format aspect ratios.
So what do we do?
So if you're printing at a kiosk, then you should make sure that you set your own crop. Some of your picture is going to be cropped. There's no doubt about that. If you want an 8x10 and you're taking a picture with a DSLR, you're going to crop some of your picture. So you have to make sure that you choose where it gets cropped. So that also means that when you're actually taking the picture, that you have to think about how much room to give yourself in case you want to print it as an 8x10 or a 5x7. 5x7 is actually even narrower. I feel like I'm talking a lot and really, really fast.
It's all right. It's good information. Christina loves it when I come back after shooting the guys at the ceremony and stuff. God. And it's right at the top of their head, like, pew. She said, there's no room if they want an 8x10. Right. So leave a little room, as she said, when you're thinking about it.
Leave a little room.
Crop in Lightroom prior so that you know exactly when it gets sent off.
Otherwise, you just crop center. Yeah. So if you have like a nice portrait of somebody, their top of the head's going to get cut off. Yeah. And also the bottom, but I mean, that doesn't matter that much.
Keep in mind if you're going to start framing things and matting, there's always a tiny bit more overlap as well.
And when photos are printed, it gets better, guys. So
sarcasm.
Well, yeah, it gets worse actually. So when they print it, there's actually a little bit of a bleed. So like a quarter of or a tenth of an inch from your actual photograph is going to be cropped. So when you get prints back, you're going to actually lose a little bit of that edge because of the bleed that is set. And that happens with every printer everywhere. I mean, my printer at home does that too, because if you want a full bleed image, you know, if you want the whole image, you don't want a white border around it, then the printer can't really calibrate it such that there is no white border. So it's gonna have to crop a little bit off of that. So yeah, so if you don't want your picture to be cropped and you don't want an 8x10, like say you want a 4x6 or an 8x12, and that's an option.
Well, 8x12, yeah. Right,
yeah.
no cropping.
Right, no cropping. So that's an aspect ratio that is the same as a 4x6. It's just a larger image. 4x6. 4x6 and 8x12. Same aspect ratio, just different sizes.
But
if you don't want any of your image to get cropped, then you can choose to have a border around it.
I'm confused when you say 4x6 because the ratio, standard sensor ratio coming out of the camera is a 4x3.
Okay. Is it? Yeah,
Yes.
okay, yes. It's 4x3, that's right.
You can choose, though, mini cameras. You can choose 70D. I think you can choose 3x2. You can also choose 1x1 and 16x9. I got it right here. I'm looking at it. Yeah, 3x2 as well. So you could shoot in that, and then you can see.
So,
and that's your,
right.
You know, that's your 6x8, 8x6, 8x10.
So you can do that as well.
Still not 8x10,
I guess what I was thinking is just 4x6 is a pretty standard size, but yes, 4x3 is the aspect ratio that is, you know, consistent with 4x6s and 8x12s, and
we're gonna move on.
We're gonna move on, but that is why your pictures have been cropped.
It's frustrating. It's annoying and it's frustrating. So keep that in mind. And he actually got 2 nice answers from Eric and Michelle there. Phil wants some tips for travel photography. He's headed towards Disney World and would like some tips on what sort of shots would be best. Here's my tip.
That's so subjective.
I think it is to some degree, but it's part of how my travel photography has evolved. It is a lot of just places when I first started out. Like, go to Disney World, take a picture of the castle, take a picture of the castle at night, you know, take a picture of some of the different rides and stuff. And now, looking back, and this is one of the things my mother says, it's great getting a tip from my mom, is you don't care what that castle looked like 20 years ago in the future. You cared about what your family looked like there. Oh my gosh,
and that is related. Going back to the sunset pictures. Related. To the sunset pictures. It's like, you're not really going to care what that sunset looked like. You're going to care about the people that were there with you. In defense,
though, of the sunset pictures, maybe this one is going to be the epicest.
But it's not. There's always going to be a more epic sunset. Always.
Okay.
Because in your memory, it's just, you just appreciate what's in front of you.
So, Phil, be sure you're capturing the people, your family, and you too. It's tricky, but I look at some of these trips I've gone on and I'm hardly in any pictures at all. So, hand it off to strangers from time to time. And get some nice family photos of you all enjoying yourself, and some candids of folks, your family and friends that are there enjoying themselves.
And like if you're making a photo book or something, then get some detailed pictures too. That can be the scenery or...
And we're not saying not any pictures of the castle or the rides and things like that.
But make sure you remember what's important. It's the people.
And also don't kill yourself carrying gear around.
Yeah,
I'm realizing that more and more. Again, I'm very, very lucky to be loaned something like this and carried it around Williamsburg. We walked, and except for having a battery issue, which I think was mostly my own fault, but you should have a spare battery for any camera, even if it's the 5D Mark III, because something wonky can happen. It can get stuck on in your bag or something, so always have a spare battery. But, you're not on these family vacations going to be making epic shots. You're capturing very nice moments, but they can be done with a variety of cameras. So don't get caught up in making sure you're carrying all of your gear because your shoulders are going to be sore. So,
good advice.
Good advice. Renee has a question about, he's getting issues. He wears glasses or corrective lenses, and he's fixed his diopter, which is that tiny little dial that most of us have probably just accidentally bumped right next to the viewfinder that controls.
And then you're like, what is wrong with my camera? My lens doesn't focus. I've done that.
Yeah. And he wants to know, you know, he's still getting a lot of blurry shots. Well, Renee, and he wants to know, do they make corrective lenses for the viewfinders? I believe that they do. They're pretty rare these days to find, but they're out there. They should be. But one of the things that you need to separate here, and a lot of times when people write me and say I'm getting blurry shots because of X or Y, well, is the camera focusing? Do you hear it go beep and do you get that little red blink of confirmation?
Right.
Then it shouldn't actually matter what you see through the viewfinder. They should be in sharp focus, but you got those other variables of what was your aperture, was your subject moving, was your shutter speed, handshake, and I'm not talking down to you at all, Renee, but I just want to always caution people when they get their camera and they're getting blurry pictures. Like somebody else who wrote me the other day and said, I just got the T5i, I'm really not happy with the quality of the pictures I'm getting out of it. I've told the story before. When I first got my Rebel XT, I'd been taking some pretty good I had a nice point and shoot. I'd taken some pictures that won an award at a fair. I was like, I'm the best photographer. And then I got that camera and I was like, oh my God, this is blurry pictures. Why is this blurry? And there was a lot that I still had to learn. So we got a little sidetracked there. But yes, they do sell those corrective bits. I think they're going to be hard to find. And we're going to need some careful testing to see, is it really... because you think it's in focus, but the camera's not.
Yeah.
It shouldn't actually really matter what you see.
Try to diagnose the issue within the camera first. Make sure you've exhausted all the variables before you decide to buy something. And then have you tried shooting with your glasses? I do that. I usually wear contacts when I'm shooting weddings, but for the last couple of weddings, I've been wearing my glasses because contacts just are really uncomfortable. So I don't adjust the diopter, I just put the camera up to my eyes with my lenses on, and they might get smudgy over the day, but I don't have to do anything to the diopter. So try that, see if that works out.
All right, Sherry wants to know, this is a big question, Sherry, what would be the best setting for indoor arena pictures for fast moving horses? And also, what would be the best lens? She's got a Canon T4i. We talked about this before. And that is not to skimp on your ISO. Make sure you're properly exposing your pictures. If you need to go to higher ISO to do that, that's better than trying to underexpose. Well, let's answer the other part of the question, the 85 f1.8. I think that is your budget inside sports photographer's lens, go-to lens.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have to be pretty close?
Well, 85 on a crop sensor.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, you're right. It's a good point. I'm thinking a lot of times I recommend that lens for basketball, volleyball, indoor sports like that, where you can be pretty close. And then a sports arena or a horse arena, you could be a little bit further away.
But I do think it is a solid suggestion.
But, better than that, you're going to get very expensive quick. And that is on rebate right now to the end of August. Remember, Canon rebates end August 30th, and that is helping with some prices right now. So there's some good deals. And you can crop in a little bit as well. But really, you're going to want to try to keep your aperture low, as wide as possible, to let in as much light. You're going to be shooting at these distances where you don't have to really worry about a shallow depth of field. You're going to keep that shutter speed fast enough to avoid blurring of the horse. 1/200th of a second, probably for most running. You might be able to go to 160th of a second. You can experiment with that.
Yeah.
Depends on whether this is like a horse show or like...
Well, I think that's the thing. Just experiment with your settings and, think about...
There's no answer.
We don't know what kind of light you're working with, what speed.
Fast enough shutter to keep them from blurring. Keep that aperture as wide as possible, and then just your ISO to the point where you're properly exposed, and you're gonna get some noisy photos. Run them through Lightroom, denoise them, unnoise them. Semyak wants to know, for bird photography, when should one stop down the aperture? I might skip this, Semyak, because this is also, I'll write an answer there. Samantha Polly, I like this. For portraits and weddings, do you use the same focus point and recompose, or move your focus point?
I move my focus point if I'm using the 5D Mark III. If I'm using the 5D Mark II, I use, unless I have really just a lot of light, I will use my center focus point and recompose.
Why not? Why not?
Because the focus points suck on the 5D Mark II.
The ones outside the center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 70D folks, all of those focus points in there are all cross-type, f2.8 accuracy. They're good. T5i, I think that's true of the T5i too. Actually, 70D, the very outer ones, no, but the inner one's good. And it's not that big a deal. But in general, all right, don't worry about the 5D Mark II stuff. In general, you should set your focus point each time.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it helps you compose a little bit better too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So it's good. Samantha says she recomposes generally, but yes, sometimes you run a risk when you recompose. If you're shooting at a really shallow depth of field, tilting the camera just a little bit. I have an old photo tip video up on that, where you're going to throw off your plane of focus. Think of your plane of focus out there shallow, and you move it, and now it's slicing across somebody's face, and it makes a difference. So you got to watch that. Kevin. So you got an APS-C like the 70D. At what point would you say, and what are the factors that push toward going full frame? So when you say you're ready, and how much of a benefit is it over crop factor? Secondly, you've now taken the full frame step. If you're going to go to this route, what would be the two absolute lenses that would be your go-tos and complement the setup? All right, we might only answer, well, we'll see what we can answer. First off, I think, you know, I did the 6D versus 70D video a little while ago, and Zach Arias just came out with that discussion I told you about crop sensors and full frames, or sensor sizes. The line is really starting to be very blurry. You know, when APS-C sensors first came along versus full frame, there was pretty significant differences in ISO performance, low light performance. Full frame really were a lot better. Technology has improved a lot, and I feel like it's improved better in the smaller frame sensors, and that gap is not as big as it used to be.
Yes, but at the same time, can you say the same thing about a camera, like two different cameras that a manufacturer makes? For example, the 70D versus the 5D Mark III. They're comparable in the sense that they're the latest that Canon has for their particular category of cameras, and yet the sensor size isn't very comparable. I mean, the 5D Mark III sensor is clearly outperforms the 70D, but then compare it against one of the Fuji APS-C sensors or the GH4 sensor.
That's true.
And then we start to see a difference. So is this about the sensor size, or is it about the manufacturers?
Well, it's part of what's making it blurry, but I'll say this. If we shot right now 5D Mark III and 70D, same lens, and composed, we'd have to compose it slightly differently to account for the crop factor. In this good light, I think it would be hard to tell what took what.
That's true.
We should do that right at the end and just.
But you don't always have good light.
That's right. So Kevin, the answer is, if you find yourself shooting in low light situations or being forced to shoot in low light situations because someone's paying you money to photograph their wedding, then the small improvements of a full frame sensor are probably going to be worthwhile. That's where I think it becomes, as a professional, you need your gear to not get in your way, and you're willing to pay huge bucks for small performance improvements, because over time that can mean much better images. If you're taking 1,000 images and you have 1,000 images that are better than 1,000 dark, okay. The two absolute lenses, I'm not going to go there because, I mean, for weddings, 24 to 70, 70-200, but there are so many other lenses and options and primes and third parties. So you tell me, Kevin, a little bit more about what you want to shoot and what you're thinking about shooting, or if this was just a general question, then I'm going to say 24, or the Sigma 24 to 105. That's a nice all-around lens too. We're just gonna, wow, there's a lot more.
Yeah.
Any tips for training your eyes to see a black and white photo instead of everything in color? Anthony wants to know that.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. I'm gonna like it, but I don't. When I think black and white, first thing I notice or think about is texture. Is, you know, does this photo have? Well, see.
How much detail is in the photo?
Don't feel like I'm good at taking black and white images. Ones that really, to me, I'm like, oh, that's a good black and white. So few images I've taken that I've either turned black and white or thought about in black and white.
This is how I create black and white pictures. I'm in Lightroom after I've taken the photo. Oh, this looks crappy in color because there's mixed lighting. Black and white, oh, that fixes it.
Yeah. You know, you can put your camera into monochrome mode and shoot through the LCD.
But in all seriousness, I think there is a way. And
I was being serious.
Well, okay, that's a good suggestion to like really visualize it in front of you.
Light
see
and texture.
What it looks like.
You can say light.
But yes, light. I mean, I think black and whites are make very good, or very simple photos make very good black and white photos. So you've got to have a very defined highlights and shadows and not too much going on, because then your eye doesn't really know where to go. And I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining this.
I think it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, start with that. Start with really simple highlights and shadows that you see. Take a picture and see how it looks in black and white. And the picture that I'm thinking of is a picture that we critiqued this week. It was of the baby.
Yes.
So I think
Angela's photo.
That's a type of picture that you could see that scene, and then you would say, oh, that would probably make a really good black and white picture, because there's just like a little bit of a highlight just hugging the baby's face, and then everything else pretty much falls into shadow. So it's very simple, and it's a beautiful black and white photo.
Nice. Good. Okay. Got anything to that? We're going to do a couple speed questions because we're also running out of battery here. Noam wants to buy the Sigma 35mm for the 70D, but because of the crop factor, they say it's going to be 60. Well, it's actually 56, and that's a really nice focal length. But they're worried that in a few years they're going to upgrade to full frame, and then they got this 35.
But 35 is an awesome focal length, so.
Yep, there you go.
Good choice all around.
It's a good choice all around. It'll be lovely when you're on full frame too. It'll be different, but lovely still. Don wants to know what print options you offer your clients. Do you want to just write that down sometime?
Print options?
Yeah, print options for your clients.
What does that mean?
I think what kind of, like, you can say, you can buy an 8x10, or you can buy, oh, what size picture did we sell?
A 30x40.
One of my pictures from a wedding of the venue was bought by the parents of the bride. 30x40. It's pretty cool. We'll talk more about that sometime. Thank you.
That, I don't know that is something that I can promise we're going to get into, because that is a really complex topic.
You say it's always changing slightly, what you offer?
That is, it is always
changing. What kind of products?
Right, it is always changing.
You offer a variety from little to huge.
And I'm not sure that I'm really doing things right, so.
Dave is looking for a super zoom that can shoot in RAW. That new FZ1000. It's great. Henry, that's a good question about setting up a portrait in ambient light in studio. What do you do differently in ambient light? We'll get to that. Mark wants to know, should he turn off his DSLR when he takes his SD card out? No. But just make sure nothing's being written to it. Pretty clear, all these cameras have a little blinky light when something's written to the SD card. Don't yank it out when that's happening. Otherwise, it doesn't need to be off.
Time for 2 more questions?
Shob it's rainy season in India, and they want to take waterfall pictures. They're trying to take long exposures during the daytime, and they're getting completely blown out pictures. Yes. get up early. Early bird gets the waterfall, as the saying goes, or after sunset. That's your first thought. First, I have a video about this that talks about this, waterfalls, search on my channel. Second is your other cheater option, which works well. It's a neutral density filter, sunglasses for your lens, and it basically does cut down the amount of light and it allows you to do longer exposures. I still find though that if you have hot spots, if you've got bright light bits, they still don't look good. That light in the evening and the morning, for so many reasons, is much better.
Before the sun has risen.
Or just after
Or just
is okay.
after.
As long as you don't have direct light on there, it will allow you to get this much more even look. So make that effort. Sate wants to know, question. This is going to be our last one. Yes. Wow, I'll sneak one more in maybe. Sate, no, I won't, because we're going to run out of battery and then I'll regret that. Sate wants to know, when shooting wide angle shots, is it a good idea to have my f-stop at a higher number to get a sharper picture? Yeah.
Generally.
If you got enough light, I'd say go ahead and stop down a little bit to get sharper images. Yeah. Only go to those wider apertures if you need to let in more light, or you are utilizing some type of creative control over your image and you want a shallower depth of field, which is actually really hard to get in wide angle shots.
Yeah. If you usually have a settings question, which we'll still definitely answer because I feel like it's useful. But one of the best ways to learn is just to play around with your settings. And two, it also depends on the environment that you're working with, how much light you have, what you're photographing. Is it a moving subject? Is it a still subject? It depends on so many things. So it's hard for us to really say, like, yeah, you should just shoot at f/22 to get this landscape. Because are you shooting it at night? Are you shooting it at, at dawn, dusk, daytime? It's really hard for us to be able to say, yes, definitely do that. So experiment. Go out and experiment. Fail a lot, make a lot of mistakes, and, you'll learn.
We already actually mostly answered Eric's question, but let me ask you this. What is the most popular two print sizes people order?
5x7 and 4x6.
5x7 and 4x6s. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. We got to put up our Flickr Pics of the week. Remember, if you put a photo in there, each week we just pop in and choose our favorite from the past week and display them to you right now. Podcast audio only listeners, imagine a beautiful image being shown to you right now. Here's mine. Christina's in a second. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't pushed that subscribe button, please do. Keep your eyes out for me in your local Michael's. I might be there shopping burlap, and I would love. I wish I'd gotten a picture with him because he's the first person to recognize me in public. Charlie. His name was Charlie. Hi, Charlie. I don't know if you watch the podcast or just the other videos. You got a question? You've got a comment? You want to talk more about smiley monkey faces? Leave it right down below. And of course, come over to Facebook and join the community there as well. Thanks. Bye-bye. Record.
Who's opening?
What?
Who's opening?
Who always opens?
Well, I wasn't sure if you were going to let me this time.
I got no title.
Make something up on the spot, that's always hilarious.